Staying in the AL Central, let's talk about the Twins. Who is that their division anymore? I had my questions about this Twins team coming into the season, and it is rearing its ugly head. John, I there's a lot of glaring issues here, batting being one of them, and man, they got to turn around soon. But what is your thoughts on what is happening in Minnesota right now?
Honestly, their pitching has been mid, but they talk about the polar opposite here for this division. Uh, you have the Guardians who are tearing the cover out the ball. Then you have the Twins who they are just not hitting. They are 14th in hits, 12th in doubles, third tie for third in triples, and 13th in home runs. As far as stolen base, they are 15th. That is last in the American League. Then you have their batting average as a team is they are 14th. On base percentage is 13th, and their slugging percentage is 14th. You know they're towards the bottom here in the American League. Uh, when it comes down to just this was their division to lose, and it looks like they are doing that. You know, you have Buxton, and he has to stay healthy. He has to make a difference, and right now, he really isn't making that much of a difference. He's only uh only batting 217 at the moment. You know, he has an on base percentage of 247. Then you have Correa, who is hurt, who was batting 306, but you know he's only played in 11 games. So when it comes down to it, the Twins need to turn this around. Otherwise, what could have been the easiest division in baseball could get away from them, and they could be looking at a fourth place finish. You know, because the Royals they're playing with speed, with power, and timely hitting, and their pitching is not bad either. Then you have the Tigers, who are a young, plucky group who are going to, who could be real competition here. And then we just talked about the Guardians who are tearing the cover off the ball and their pitching is keeping them in games, to say the least. So when you look at it, this could get away from the Twins real quick, and they need to turn things around. And I don't think they're going to be able to, honestly.
I just again, my whole thing with them was their problem is going to be in their pitching. Like they lose Sonny Gray, and you kind of look at like their pitchers there, and they're like, it's kind of a lot of guys that are not all that well known or established, and then it's really has been the hitting. Like they are horrible right now. I mean their team batting average at the moment is less than it's a buck. They're hitting a buck 95 as a team. Like that is just you can't win like that.
You can't
And
win when you're not hitting as a team above the Mendoza line. Like,
yeah, like
gee,
that's ridiculous. Their OPS as a whole is bottom, and again, like they're hovering with the White Sox. If you're around where the White Sox are, that's very bad. Um, so it's not good right now, and I understand they've had some injuries, right, and that's going to be a big thing. The big one, and I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it's kind of been, or he wasn't going to be out this long as Royce Lewis. He gets injured in the first game of the season, and this was a guy that had a lot of promise for them last year. Was going to be one of the big guys this year. He's still out, and I'm assuming they're going to potentially get him back maybe here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But that's been tough. Correa's been out. Um, Duran's been out in the back end, so it has just been nonstop for them. But from your standpoint, Will, what do they need to do as a team to turn this around, or just in general, what are your opinions on the Twins?
They're a team the last few years, which I believe this surprised all three of us when we were looking at preseason stuff predicting for the team and what they've done in the past is they've been a home run team. They are 13th in the AL in home runs this year. They're not doing what the Red Sox are doing right now, which is having great. Obviously, they're not having great pitching, but hitting the snot out of the ball and leading the league in home runs. So that was probably the team's hope entering the season, was that their offense would overcome whatever pitching challenges they had and be enough to win the division. And they are failing on every front offensively. Now, their stretch coming up could be the real factor as to whether or not this team does show signs of rewriting the early story or whether they are bound to be doomed for the season. Over the next 10 games, they play the White Sox and the Angels. If the team wants to get to 500 at the end of that stretch, they need to go 8-2. It's not unrealistic, especially when the White Sox name is thrown around in that mix. But if they do anything around 500 over that stretch and still find themselves 3-4 games under 500, you then got to question what's going on, because they should absolutely pummel those pitching staffs if they do believe that their offense is good enough to put up power numbers. Yes, the injuries early on have hurt them. I felt like they probably had enough youth behind them to at least fill in for those injured players. But I mean, yeah, the Twins division, it was their division to lose. They're a tricky team to kind of predict early on because they've had a history of choking. I have very little faith in this team right now, especially because they have three teams ahead of them, at least two I see competitive for the division. So pray that the home run ball comes quick, and when it comes, it lasts.
Yeah. It is just, it's kind of crazy looking at this because one of the guys that was absolutely killing it in spring training, and there's a lot of talk about him, was Edouard Julian. He is not having a good start to the year. He leads their team in plate appearances and is batting a buck 79. So that's been tough. And Buxton, like another guy who, he's such a good player, and everybody was just like, man, we just want to see this guy for a full season. He's electric. He's had a slow start. So it's just, it's everybody has been bad at the same time for the Twins, and they need to start getting those bats hot again because, as you said, they have a very favorable schedule. In the next week and a half, they're going to play the White Sox 7 times. I would imagine that they can get close to 8-2 in that stretch and get themselves back up and into this division race. But this has to be the series where they get the bats hot. Like, if you're not going to get the bats hot against the White Sox, then it's going to be a long year because their rotation and their bullpen are absolutely trash. You need to get something going here. These guys that were projected to have these big years need to get things going, because it just right now it cannot be. You can't bat like this and expect to make the playoffs, even if your division is as mid as they've been for the past couple of years. The division is getting better, and the Twins, are they falling off? I mean, it's been their division for so long; they've had such a stranglehold on this division. They got to start doing something quickly to, get themselves back into this one. John, any last remarks on the Twins or anything else you found in your research?
Honestly, it just comes down to their hitting, like we've been saying. It's we can beat this dead horse all we want, but if they don't turn this around, then this division is lost, and 2024 is a lost season for them because, as we said at the beginning of this season when we were making our picks, wildcard teams are not going to be coming from the AL Central. They're just not. You have to win the division in order to get in the playoffs, and right now you are not playing good enough to be anywhere close to that. So, if the White Sox were not as bad as they are, the Twins could be in fifth place. But thankfully for them, the White Sox are atrocious. So they have this chance here to turn this around, and if they don't, this division is going to get away from them because the Royals are not going to stop. Not with Bobby Witt Jr. and um, not with Salvador Perez. Uh, yeah. I always get him mixed up with Pedro Severino. I think it's the SP and the PS. Anyway, sorry, I wanted to try and catch myself before I sounded too dumb. Anyway, point is when you can really lose this division with how competitive these other teams are and how up and coming these other teams are. You know, you can lose this division if you're not careful. You know, so you're gonna want to turn this one around.
I think the one last thing I want to say about them is coming into this season, I had questions about their third outfield spot. That is becoming an issue early. Matt Wallner in a somewhat limited sample size, and I think I don't know if it's been injury or they benched him because he's batting less than 100 on the year. Now that's in 33 at bats, but I had questions about that. I really thought they were going to be the team that re-signed, that went out and in their case re-signed Michael A. Taylor, who hasn't been setting the world on fire or anything. But yeah, I had questions about that spot, and then when you're also not getting contributions from the guys that you kind of relied on, like your Edward Julians, Ryan Jeffers behind the plate, as well, and a little bit of the case. And I know Correa has been out, but he's been good for them. It's just like you need your guys to produce. That is the bottom line. You need the people that you rely on to produce. If Warner comes in and bats, whatever 220 for the rest of the year, and you have contributions for other spots, that's fine. But when he's batting, you know, as bad as he is, and everybody else is as well, like, I'm not putting all the blame on him. I just had questions about that position, and now um, that's a question for them, and really their roster up and down as a whole. So, Will, any last remarks on the Twins? Or are you ready to move on?
Pray for them.